1240 in France, based on a decree by the Pope, there was a debate, a trial of the Talmud that took place in which Nicholas Donin, a Jewish apostate who converted to Christianity, debated with some eminent rabbis about whether the Talmud was anti-Christian, whether it was anti-Gentile, etc., etc. Unfortunately, the debate was lost by the rabbis, and it resulted in the burning of, well, the estimate is something like 30 cartloads of Talmud, keeping in mind 1240, every copy was handwritten, there was no printing at this point, so represented probably the bulk of the copies of the Talmud in France. Terrible tragedy, commemorated by a fast day, not a very well known or widely observed fast day, but a fast day which is set for Erev Shabbat, Friday, of this week's Torah portion, Parshat Chukat. And when I think about the book burnings that took place throughout history, the banning of books, the censorship of Jewish books, and I think about the level of discourse that exists today, in which people are banned, in which people's events are cancelled, in which you cannot say certain words, in which open debate is really not allowed. There are just certain things you cannot say, despite the fact that the United States guarantees freedom of speech in its constitution. And I understand that yelling fire in a crowded cinema obviously is problematic and should be banned. But on the other hand, that a person has to be, you have to limit your speech really carefully, and one has to be continuously worried about offending someone or microaggression, etc., etc. I understand that these are important issues. I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to offend people. But on the other hand, I also want to have open and free debate. We want to have intellectual discourse. Intellectual discourse, open debate, requires a certain level of risk, requires a certain level of tension. And I think, as Heinrich Heine, great German poet, once said, without tension, there is no creativity. If everything is vanilla, a good friend of mine, Rabbi Karsh, once pointed out that, beers in Europe tend to be have a little more bite. Very often they have to have very strong flavors and unique flavors, etc. Commercial breweries, where it's just the standard beer you'll buy as a six-pack in a store somewhere, tends to be all smoothed out. Nothing too sharp, nothing too offensive, nothing too unique. Culture should not be like that. Discourse should not be like that. It's okay to have certain things which are like a little shocking, maybe even slightly offensive. I don't know. I don't know exactly the border here, but banning and burning and cancelling and eliminating opinions, etc., etc., from the public discourse, don't think it's a good idea. And certainly as Jews, we have suffered from this throughout our history with the book burnings and bannings and censorship. And this is just one example, not a small example, 30 cartloads of books, all the Talmud in France virtually in the 13th century, terrible tragedy. And we have really suffered from this throughout our history. Our voices have been silenced, our books have been silenced, and not a good thing to happen. So just something to keep in mind as a lesson from this week in Jewish history and a lesson from the Jewish calendar. This is Mordechai Becher with the Gateways Parshat vlog.